everybody talks. It started with the whisper.
People want to take drugs, do things in their own life. It's not much for me to condemn them. Why in God's name would you get someone to videotape it?
Who knows, there might be 5 Ashes tests played between Sydney and Melbourne.
If there's any race that should be the race of champions, it should be the Cox Plate.
No disrespect, but there's C and C graders who will help a good team, but they're not going to, take the team to the promised land.
And he should go to Carlton, and they should just give Fremantle pick 6 and we should just move on.
On RSN Central, welcome to the Monday Forum.
Let's welcome in the team for this Monday. Jimmy Bartell, welcome to RSN Central.
I'm excited to be here. I love that play on. It was going through all my head, all the draft stuff that was going on, and the cattle trading that's about to kick off.
And Glenn McFarlane, hello to you, Macca.
Yeah, good morning, Gareth. Good morning, Jimmy. We hope there's a bit of cattle trading going on, Jimmy, but it's looking pretty quiet at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as big as previous years. Well, even you go back to last year and the Giants, the big player there with Jeremy Cameron, but also you had Zach Williams putting his hand up to go to Carlton, Sard. I think there was bigger names in the pool, but look, I think there'll be a number of moves late, and already we start the posturing, and you see, Gareth, it's the best. It's how everyone uses the media. They've got all their little contacts, and I'll tell you what, this pick's on the table if you all package up something that we can't refuse, and we're going to make ruthless decisions. There's all these words that they love to toss around.
Well, Richie Vandenberg has used Johnny Ralph today on the back page of the Herald Sun. This is what Richie quotes in the article. He says, of course, he's the football manager for the Hawthorn Footy Club these days. Even this year, we want to continue to improve our draft hand. That is the way we want to go. We are looking at all kinds of ways we can go. We are looking at trading picks, future picks, current picks, salary cap movement, and play. So no one's off the table for the Hawks. Who do you think they should trade, Jimmy?
I'm not in the business of trading your best players because you know what, they're the actual guarantee of what you know. And this is always the thing when they say, you should supercharge your rebuild by getting rid of an A-grade talent and getting draft picks. Now, the draft has been littered with top 10 picks that haven't turned out, or someone at pick 4 turns out to be better than pick 1. But the one thing I will say about it all is this whole notion of people with multiple first-round picks, or sweeters picks, as we call them. We tend to write all these articles going, just package them up and go get pick 2.
Yep.
Now, I'm telling you, if you're in the first 4 picks, you're not trading out of there unless someone gives you another pick within the first 5 and a future first round. Because let's go to this year's premiers. What pick was Petrarca? What pick was Luke Jackson?
Yep.
We go back to the 3-time Norm Smith medalist, Dustin Martin. What pick was he? We go to the Hawks, Franklin Roughhead. They're all picked, in the first 4 picks, first 5 picks if you want to find someone else. It's that very pointy end that can be an absolute game changer for your club for a decade. Now, I know the whole idea of multiple picks, Essendon was a little bit different. How often do you see 3 picks in a row in the top 10? I think that's a little bit different.
Macca, do you think that there's a chance, and I can understand what Jimmy's saying, but for instance, for Jimmy's old club Geelong, they've got a lot of picks in the 30s, but it might be a great time to have those picks in the 30s because you just don't know how good these players are because of the lack of football that we've seen, especially for the Victorian kids.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, guys. We don't know how many of these... I mean, we know the elite talent, the top elite talent, but some of these kids haven't basically played a serious season for 2 years. Like, they've had a situation where they've played, in fits and starts, and we already saw that with a couple of last year's draftees. Some come out and did really well. Others took a time to sort of to find their feet, and that happened with a couple of Collingwood's early round picks that they took until the late end of the season to actually get into a bit of a groove. So it is a real difficult situation for clubs knowing which way to go. And I sort of agree with Jimmy in a sense about the Hawthorn scenario. If I was Geelong, I'd be trying to trade in a little bit. That's what I'd be doing, trying to invest. And I think there will be some moves at Hawthorn. I think that's what's going to happen. I think, Tim O'Brien, we think, may probably go. John Segler may go. Then I know, Jimmy, they're not at the elite top level, but it's a situation with even someone like Chad Wingard. You would think he wants to stay, but if there's an option to get him to another club to give Hawthorn a chance to buy into this draft, I think they'll look at something like that.
Yeah, I agree, but there's also the other side of the deal is how many clubs can afford Chad Wingard and then execute the deal that makes Hawthorn happy? So it's kind of funny when I talk to different people and they go, this player right here would look really good at this team. I said, well, there's three key components you're forgetting. He's got to want to go.
Yeah.
They've got to want him, and then you've got to actually be able to have the tools to get the trade done. You know, the sort of three important things that go on in a trade.
Do you think that this period needs to be dealt with better, and we can learn from other sporting organisations around the world? Because you've got the Chera situation. Like they want pick 6. Carlton say that's maybe fair enough. They'll debate that for a little while, and eventually they'll get the deal done. Do you think we need to find out a better way to do this, Jimmy?
Well, I think the big point of difference that we have compared to other big professional sporting bodies around the world is we can't trade players against their will. So that's why there's so much...
Which I can't understand. In a professional game, why can't you do that?
Well, it's just how it is at the moment.
Yeah.
That's why there's such fluid nature. When we're all NBA fans, or we're EPL fans, or we're any of those major codes around the world, that's why it can be done quick and effective. Because the player is just an asset; it's not a person.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trading contracts. So in NBA, the contracts have got to match up. If clearly, Gareth, you'd be on $1 million a year. But you can't trade for Glenn and myself, who combined only make 150 grand. The contracts have got to match up.
What are you laughing at, Macca? That wasn't that funny.
I thought that was spot on.
But I just can't. I think it needs to be changed in a way, because you got that situation, even ridiculous situation. I know it's a different ball game over in America at the moment with Ben Simmons with his contract. That's a bad comparison. But I think sometimes that if a player signs and they want to play professional sport, Jimmy, then if they need to be moved for their football side, well, they have to be moved, don't they?
Yeah, well, then it also takes out the whole... The words I hate, that everyone loves to jump on, saying walk him through the draft. Because then it's actually another lever for a bottom play side in the negotiation.
Yeah.
It doesn't become a proper negotiation then. So it does take a little bit of that tool out of it.
Who's the side that needs to win this trade period, Macca? Who's the side that can really, if they can find a couple of players, can help them win a premiership? Or do you think that it might be difficult for clubs to do that this year with the players that are on offer?
I think it's going to be difficult to do that this year. I don't think you're going to be able to change everything in this particular... When we're talking about the top two at the, in terms of the names so far of the trade period, Adam Chera and Jordan Dawson, in that sense, we're talking about Pat Lipinski going to Collingwood, but he couldn't get a game with the Bulldogs. So we're not looking at the top end. So I don't think there'll be massive change. I think Carlton, can have a really good trade period. I think George Hewitt... I think he'll make a difference for Carlton. He's sort of the player they definitely need, I think, and I think Chera will as well. They'll get that deal done, guys. That'll happen. They'll be haggling. It'll end up being pick 6 marked down to pick 8, and they'll throw in a separate sort of pick there as well. But that'll happen. But I can't see this being a trade period where a club's just going to launch and go from being a 10th ranked side to a top 2 or top 3 side. In a sense, Jimmy, and you would know this as well as anyone, I think the AFL's been almost as much to blame as anyone for this being a bit of a fizzer of a trade period. The clubs don't know what the list sizes are. They don't know what the actual salary cap will be next year. So it's almost been a bit of a sense of self-sabotage in that sense. And I'm sure it won't happen next year, because they love to own this period. And if this trade period is a fizzer, as it's looking like it at the moment, I think it won't happen next year, Jimmy. I'm sure they'll jump in and change that.
Yeah, and I think off the back of the 2 COVID seasons, you mentioned the cap cuts, the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, in everyone's natural position when anything like that goes on is just sit still and sit tight.
Yep.
And it's, what is the lay of the land? And you mentioned it, list sizes, what is the salary cap going to come back to? What's the football department going to come back to? And so, there's a lot of football clubs going, so what are the answers here? And the AFL... obviously, who've been preoccupied by just keeping a season going. Which state are we playing footy in? So it's been a difficult beast to manage. But the one for me is Richmond. Now, whatever the Callum Coleman-Jones deal comes out of North Melbourne, let's just say it's going to be, call it 18 to 32, where it is. It's sort of that early, it's second round. Let's just say it's a second round pick. You add that to their handful of draft picks. You get a fit Dustin Martin. There's still a lot of top-end talent there, a lot of guys who were injured throughout last year. Richmond will be able to still contend, but then also replenish their young stocks at the same time.
And they were teasing us for a little while there during the season, Richmond. Then they just couldn't keep on going with the injuries that hit that football club in the latter part of the year. I agree with you, Jimmy. They're $11 at the moment, the Tigers. If they start well, they'll be a lot shorter than that. I think they've still got they've got the players that can help them win another flag. Before we let you go, because I know that you have to leave a little early today, Jimmy, on your first show.
Yeah.
I want to have a chat about Brady and Belichick, because Tom Brady's just rocked up to New England once again to take on his old club. Who do you think was more important throughout the years?
I reckon early days Belichick, but then now you see players come to Brady.
Yeah,
I think in the last 2 years it's been the Brady factor. We haven't seen Richard Sherman, probably one of his greatest nemesis on the other side of the ball, going, well, I want in as well. And they all buy into it. He turned bad eggs. That Tampa Bay side, if you went through all the stories, and I know, Gareth, you and I were having a chat in Super Bowl week last year, there's guys who were like kicked off teams. And he just said, right, if you want to win a title, and they're like, yep, if we stick with what Tom says, we'll win a title. So I think as their careers went along, I think the dynamic shifted.
He's having like the Craig Bellamy effect in a way, where he gets people that have had their chances and this is your last chance really, and he gets them to perform above themselves in a way.
Yeah, they just fill the role, like know your role. And I think that's what Belichick's big at in New England. Brady's taken that, amplified it, and then he's gone and planted it at Tampa Bay.
Yep. They're $3.30 New England against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay are $1.34. Does Tom get the job done? This is Brady, of course. Yep. Yeah,
he'll take all the time off the clock. He'll actually do what Belichick does to other sides. When Belichick knows he doesn't have the strong hand, he just takes all the clock from you.
Yeah.
So we'll throw 3-yard passes, 4-yard passes. We'll run it. We'll keep it in the middle of the field. We'll take it down to the final 2 minutes, and we'll play a 2-minute game, and I'll be better at it.
Did you miss AFL over the weekend, Jimmy? What did you do on? I know you love your racing as well. Did you have a fill-in for the AFL?
Yeah, it was the racing. Just seeing the lay of the land of racing, where it's all at, where I'm going to lose and fail again this spring carnival, just prepping myself for that.
I don't think Incentivise gets beat in the Caulfield Cup. I think you'll be awfully hard to beat, and we'll hear from Brett Preble in just a moment. But it is going to be some spring carnival. I think it basically starts now, Macca, with the Caulfield Guineas.
It does. Like, Saturday was fantastic, and like Jimmy, my attention was totally on the races and realising how much money I've got to go through over the next 6-week period. But I think you're right. It starts now. It's, Saturday might have been moving around, but this is big now. And I think you're right, Gareth. It's really hard to see Incentivise losing the Caulfield Cup now. There's a few possibilities. We know Colette's a chance to run this weekend. I'm a massive floating artist fan. Young Werther was terrific. This horse, guys, I think it sounds stupid, but it reminds me a little bit of, this sounds sacrilege to actually say it, it reminds me a little of Northerly in the sense that it looks like it's going to get beaten 2 and 3 times in a race, and somehow it just lifts and finds enough to get over the line. I reckon you listen to Peter Moody's voice, and that excitement in his voice just says to you, there's a lot more to come, I think, with this horse.
What are you hearing, Jimmy? You've got more connections in the racing game than anyone.
I do love that comparison to Nordley. That is my favourite racehorse. We've all got a favourite. I still remember 2001 going to the Cox Plate against Sunline and Viscount, where they just bashed each other around the track, and it was unbelievable. It's something I'll never forget. I think it was the first packed Moonee Valley. It was bloody too hot to be in a suit, I'll give you that. But I keep thinking these races, and Zaki as well, and the two massive favourites coming to the Spring Carnival. But I remember 2017 Spring Carnival.
Yes.
And we ended up with Boom Time at $50. And then we had Rekindling at $60, and then we had Ace High, I think was at $7 or $8 for the Derby, and it was only Winks who straightened us up really in the Cox Plate. So I'm sort of hoping there's still some value when we come to the big races.
I don't think that'll happen this year. I think the favourites should dominate the big Grand Slams. I'll let you go with this, Jimmy. I've got one for you in the NFL this year.
All right, you got it.
Dallas Cowboys at $31. I think this could just be the Cowboys' year.
I just can't. The Dallas Cowboys are like everyone's Collingwood, I reckon. They've got a massive following. Their fans are loyal. They love them, but everyone loves to see them get beaten.
Yep. I like the way that they played today. I think this could be their year, the Cowboys. Good on you, Jimmy. We'll catch up
See
with
you
you
guys.
next week.
Thanks, Jimmy.
We'll take a quick break. It's 10:49. This is The Forum. Gareth Hall, Glenn McFarlane with you. Still plenty more to come straight after this. Plus your questions, 0416 90 50 52. Your questions and opinions on the weekend sport. 10:51, you're with Gareth Hall, Glenn McFarlane for RSN Central's Forum on this Monday. Macca, Mitch Cleary breaking the story this morning that Seb Ross has turned his back on free agency, so he stays at the Saints, which I think is good for both parties.
Yeah, I think it is, Gareth. We were always thinking that he was likely to do that. In a sense, he had some issues, obviously, with the club this year. We know, and we remember back to the fact that he missed the game, wanted to return home to his family, which was completely understandable. And that, so I think it's actually a really good move. The Saints need a person like Seb Ross. He's a great team player, and that's important, I think.
Just want to have a chat about the vaccinations in professional sport, because we've seen in other sporting organisations, Corey Irving doesn't want to take the vaccination, so that means he won't be able to play basketball in some states, including New York. So he'll miss half the season if he doesn't take the vaccination. Novak Djokovic, he won't be allowed to compete at Melbourne Park if he's not double vaccinated. Do you think this will be a problem for sports in this country?
Yeah, I think it will, Gareth. I really do.
Yep.
But, I mean, I think it's a situation that we can't change. Obviously with the AFL, we've had a number of clubs, obviously been very active in telling us how many of, I think it's 95% or 90% of most clubs have had their first, players have had their first vaccination. You flip that with the tennis world and you look at around about the ATP Tour's got about 50% of the male players vaccinated at the moment, which is staggering, really, when you think about it. I think the women's is a little bit more at 60%. So we are going to have some huge issues here, particularly Australian Open time. We know that Novak has got that anti-vaxxer stance, but it's not just Novak in that sense. There's Medvedev and Tsitsipas and a number of the women top 10 players as well, Gareth, are reluctant to get the vaccination. So we're going to have some troubles, I think, coming forward with the Australian Open.
I want to play you a grab from Jurgen Klopp. Of course, I think he's the best manager in the game at the moment. He manages Liverpool, and this is what he had to say about the vaccinations being mandated in sport.
With the vaccination, we assume it's not good for our body, even nearly all of them. Maybe there are some specialists out there and say alcohol is good for the body, I don't know. But most tell us the vaccination is the solution for the situation in that moment. And that's for me exactly the same. I don't take the vaccination only to protect me. I take the vaccination to protect all the people around me. And I don't understand where that is a limitation of freedom. Because if it is, then not being allowed to drink and drive is a limitation of freedom as well.
He makes sense. He makes sense
absolutely.
there, Klopp. And I don't get it. I'm not going to tell anyone that you should be vaccinated because it's not my job. Everybody's got a choice. But you do have to make sure that you look after other people around you as well. I think you have that duty of care. And people with power need to make sure that they put those rules and protocols in laws in place to protect people's safety.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that was a great comment then, and, in the sense that I can't understand. Like you, I don't want to be forcing people, telling people that they have to go and get something, but if they want to be a part of what, professional sporting life, this is going to be something that they just have to do. And in a sense, the AFL are about to release a policy, and in a lot of ways, that's been taken off their hands with Daniel Andrews basically saying all essential workers have got to take have at least a vaccination, so that we're going to see all the players, which is interesting. We've had a few players in the AFL world who have actually shown some issues, like and Jaden Stevenson was one who tweeted something about the vaccinations and then deleted it. We've had some NBL players already have their contracts torn up because of that reason. So I think there's going to be more and more of that. But hopefully, like as you said, people realise you're not just taking it for yourself, you're taking it for the people around you and for the rest of the community.
Loved the NRL Grand Final last night. It was tight. I thought South Sydney were brave. The ball just didn't bounce their way on several occasions, but well done to the Clearys, the father-son combination, taking out that title.
It's just fantastic, isn't it, Gareth? Like a great story that Ivan Cleary, gets to present his son with the Clive Churchill medal. God bless him. I did back him in that sense. So talking through my pocket there a little bit there, Gareth. But it's just a great story, isn't it? The father-son combination in a premiership of the NRL. We haven't had that in an AFL sense where there's been a coach who's coached his son, as I understand it. We haven't had that in an AFL sense, but it was just a magic night for the Clearys, and they've been through a bit of heartache, and they got the reward.
Yeah, over to Nathan Cleary. Cleary won the medal for being best on ground, and they were heartbreak for the Panthers there last year. They were the best side in the competition before they went down to the Melbourne Storm, and the Melbourne Storm were probably the best team in the competition this year, and the Panthers caused that upset in that preliminary final last week. What about Wayne Bennett? He bows out of coaching South Sydney anyway, and he is a grumpy coach. There's something about him, however, that I think people still love. Wayne Bennett, for mine, he's a little bit hit and miss. I do respect him and all that, but sometimes I think he does carry on a little bit too much at a media conference.
It's the classic Gareth, I think, when you see the grumpy coach at a press conference, when you're sitting in the front row trying to ask the grumpy coach after a loss, and I sometimes find after a win, the grumpy coach is even worse as well. And it made me think of some of the great ones of AFL history in the sense of a Mick Malthouse in his prime, who's actually a charming man away from the coaching box, and Lee Matthews. And the great story that Trevor Grant, the former journalist, used to tell of Carl Dietrich, who once chased him out of a media conference with a towel around him, ready to belt him. So there's some scary times for journos in those conferences.
We love Dennis Pagan on this show, and Dennis Pagan's been so great to us here on RSZ 927, but there was times where he was a little bit frightening for journalists, especially some of the rookie journalists when they used to go to Arden Street to ask him a few questions. And Mick Malthouse was the same. I think sometimes Mick Malthouse went too far, like that journo that asked him that day, "Did you come to play, Mick?" And he goes, what's that saying mean? Like, everybody in this country knows what that saying means, Mick.
Exactly. That was Jay Clark, and you know, there was nothing wrong with the question. There was absolutely nothing wrong with the question. He was scary, Mick, in his prime, more so in the West Coast Eagles days and the early Collingwood days, but he ended up becoming quite charming. But I was just thinking about some of the world stage. Like, at least they didn't take a rifle to the media. I remember Diego Maradona got a gun out. The late great Diego Maradona got a gun out with some journos one time, and Alex Ferguson would have scared me, I reckon, Gareth, and Greg Popovich is the other one that I reckon would scare me if I had to sit before him and ask him a few questions.
And the common denominator with all of those coaches is that they're much loved by their players. When you listen to the players that have played under those coaches that you just mentioned, they all love and adore them. A few SMSs coming through, Macca. Gareth, this is from Tom. He says, "Hi, Gareth. Incentivised will win the Caulfield Cup. Cox played in the Melbourne Cup." That's a big call. Let's hear what Brett Preble had to say on Incentivised this morning after his win in the Turnbull Stakes.
Yeah, he's a nice horse to ride in that sense, because you can feel that he wants to do it for you, and be competitive. So when he come up beside him, I knew he was never going to get past him, and actually he's on the line. He was really strong, and that's where I really loved him. And through the line, I'm not saying he'll run 32, but geez, I think he'll run a 2400 is going to be his real game at the moment, and he's really, really fit and healthy horse. So obviously Pete's got to keep him ticking over and keep him in the form he's in, and he's going to be off. So he's 2-1 favourite, or 2-3 favourite for the Cup. So he's entitled to be, isn't he?
And some news with Very Elegant. To Very Elegant, Chris Waller's just reported on his social media platforms that Very Elegant is enjoying a few days out in the paddock with his normal routine for her following a race. Her scope was clean and her legs are fine, so we'll have a few days of beach work at Lauriston Thoroughbred before coming back into Flemington on Wednesday, and I would imagine she still will be aimed at the Cox Plate. No Caulfield Cup. Few questions coming back. Is Very Elegant definitely going to the Caulfield Cup? No, she's going to the Cox Plate, Macca. Yeah, she'll go to the Cox Plate, and I'm happy to see her there. It's going to be really hard to see her beat Zaki in that sense. I think only a really, really wet track's going to probably help in that sense. The other person before who texted in about Incentivised as well might be right. I mean, Incentivised might be Zaki's biggest threat if Moods decides to go in a Cox Plate direction. We obviously remember what Norley was able to do, and it's going to be a fascinating Cox Plate, and I'd love to see Very Elegant win it, but it's going to be difficult unless it's a really, really bog track, I reckon, at this stage. 100%. Hi, Gareth. Like the way during the NRL presentation they named the junior clubs of the players. I think the AFL should do the same thing. That's from Mikey from Bendigo. I agree with you, Mikey, there, Macca.
Yeah, I do too. I tweeted about that last night and had a great response. The only thing is, I reckon rather than schools, I don't want them, tweeting about, all their individual schools and that. Their junior clubs, I thought it was a really, really good touch. And, where they first started their footy, I think that's an area. We do it, I think, when they get drafted, don't we? But we need to make that on Melbourne, on Grand Final Day to do it as well. I reckon it'd be awesome.
Good morning, Gareth. As I stated previously, I'm a daily listener. Today's about rewinding back with Gator and this morning with the verdict, but something that won't be mentioned is Gareth all Saturday, 4-leg multi at the Bendigo Harness. You mentioned it Wednesday. Oh, that one. That's the only winner I've tipped all week. Thanks for that, Andrew. I didn't know what that was actually going to say. I wouldn't have read it out otherwise. Macca, what do you think Collingwood will do in the trade week? Because they've got this Dacos situation that they need to keep all of their draft picks.
Yeah, they need to keep as many as they can, or what they'll probably end up doing is trading out a couple of players. That's what they'll end up doing, because they'll bring in a couple. What they'll also do is potentially trade some future picks as well, I reckon, Gareth, and just to try and load up this year so they can get the draft number right so they can actually get hold of Dacos. It'll happen, but they're also sort of got a lot of work to do in the sense of getting Lipinski in and potentially Kruger from Geelong as well. They'll get it done. It won't be easy, but they'll definitely get it done.
Adam wants to know if Superstorm is going to the Chirac. My understanding that he is. So I think that's the case there for Bob Peters and also Danny O'Brien. Howdy, mate. I have to gloat here. Backed Incentivise at 9 for the Caulfield Cup, 17 for the Melbourne Cup. Saki Cox played into Incentivise for the Caulfield Cup at $26. That's from one of our listeners, Pump. Send those punting stories. I love those punting stories. It's not over the line just yet, but you'd be pretty happy with yourself. Hey, Macca, thanks for that, mate. We'll catch up with you next week. Enjoy your day.
Good on you, Gareth. Have a good one.